we have Rick with Salvati Insurance. Rick, how do you pronounce your last name?
Fornasiero.
Fornasiero.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what do you exactly do at Salvati?
Right. I'm an independent agent. I work with clients to help them with their insurance needs, a variety of insurance needs, personal lines insurance, whether it be home and auto or commercial or business insurance. I've been doing this for a number of years, 40 years, and so I have a lot of experience at it. I like working with clients. I like working with people, getting to know them, helping them out. At the same time, it is a good business to make good money in. So, but you help people, and you when you help them out, you in return do well.
Okay. So 40 years.
Yeah.
So you started when you were 10?
25, actually.
Yeah.
So
you're looking good.
Well, thank you, sir.
You're doing really well.
Well, thank you, sir.
So, the whole purpose of Property Unhinged is to educate property owners, commercial and residential, on insurance needs that they don't realize they need. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm sure that you've seen this many times over. Client gets a loss. They weren't covered for it, but they wanted that really good rate, really cheap price per month. And they don't realize that at the end of the day, when they need to use the insurance, come back to bite them sometimes if it's about price, right?
Right.
We also find in today's world where you can go right online, get insurance from some customer service rep over the phone or, over the internet that has generally no idea. They're just plugging numbers and not really looking out for the interest of the customer. They don't know the home. They don't understand the insurable property, and they get burned there too. So what I find most is working with local agents, the bigger value there because you have somebody then able to fight for you or direct you in a better position. And what's your take on that?
Yeah, totally. If you deal with a direct carrier and you're online or you are speaking to someone on the phone, they don't know you. You don't know them. When most homeowners are asking questions and trying to get some type of a product from a direct carrier, they're really looking for price, and they don't understand that there's a value in understanding what protection is really needed. And the person on the other line, they don't really go into a big in-depth conversation normally about the product. So you have a disconnect there. You don't have a real meaningful discussion on what is really needed for the client. As an independent rep that deals directly with clients that can come on our office and sit down face-to-face, we discover what the situation is for the client. We find out about them. We find out about their property. We try to find out the total package so that we can make recommendations so that they're secure in what they're purchasing. We'll go over what some of the protections can be, the upgrades that they can have on their policies. They can make a decision from there on the pricing if they want to have those type of extra protections or not. We describe what those protections are in great detail and try to give them examples so it's a real life situation so they understand in case something did happen, if they had that extra protection, what that would take care of, or if they decided to decline that extra protection, what the consequences would be. So, these are the differences between a direct carrier and an independent agent.
So what you're saying is you would suggest using a local agent over somebody online?
Absolutely. Someone that you can build a trust with, someone that you can look in the eye and that they're in your doing the best interest for yourself. You want to make sure that you can trust that person because your home is one of your most valuable assets. You want to make sure it's protected correctly.
Yeah,
so
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I know we have like State Farm agencies. You have
Right.
Allstate agencies. Can you explain to the listeners what exactly is that type of an agency, next to what you guys do and what you work for?
There's different channels of how to purchase an insurance policy. It would be a direct to a carrier online or over the phone. There's also captive agents, which are local, but they represent one particular brand. Not to knock these brands. There's some really popular, long-time insurers that have been in the market, like the State Farms, the Allstates. But an Allstate or State Farm, they have only that product to provide to the client. They might miss some of the different coverages that maybe another company would have that they do not. So they can't offer anything but that product and the pricing that that company has for that client. A independent agent can shop with various companies. We have various companies that we can actually market towards. Some have more unique type of coverages that it might be better for a certain client. We can then find out that that the pricing might be better with another carrier. So we can switch on an annual basis from one carrier to the next to help the client out. Find the best type of premium with the best coverages for them.
Yeah, you definitely answer one of the bigger questions. Is the customer's usually up against price. Well, with being able to vet multiple carriers at once per year, you're able to maybe change. I mean, maybe policies have changed, right? Languages have changed. Things have shifted the way that the pricing is actually done. All right, so the agency that we would normally use, like let's say State Farm or Allstate, right? Mm-hmm. There's no standardization across the board that every carrier has to be regulated to enforce. Is that the way it is?
Well, there's a certain standard policies that when they apply to the state of Michigan, and an HO3 policy, for instance, is a regular home policy that is an all-risk policy. Every carrier would have that type of policy, but there are add-ons. There's different things that could be added, such as, let's say, service line coverage, which is coverage that protects clients' lines that are coming into a home. Their water lines, their sewer lines, electrical lines. One carrier might have that type of protection. Another carrier might not. So it does vary from company to company what a product can, be, extra benefits that could be added to a product.
Okay, so the state's not allowed to enforce kind of regulated standardization in.
Not in some of these situations, for sure. No,
okay.
They cannot. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it's important to have an agent that's educated, understands, what those needs are going to be needed to be filled.
Absolutely.
And how to pick that certain carrier.
Absolutely.
Okay. Big one that we see a lot in the contracting industry, deductibles. We see what used to be just your standard $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 set deductible that are now changing to percentage deductibles. What do we know about that, and why did that happen?
Well, I think it was twofold. One way, part of it was probably to reduce the premium for clientele. The other part of it was for the insurance company to pay a percentage, or maybe a higher deductible would be paid by the clients. Of course, the deductible is paid by the client, and the rest of it is paid by the insurance company. In the past, when I got in the business, there were $50 deductibles, $100 deductibles, and that is quite
nice.
Yeah, well, the problem with that though is the lower the deductible, the higher the premium is, and that's why we've gone to higher deductibles, because that has decreased the premiums. I have a friend of mine who has a very nice home, and he has a $10,000 deductible. He will pay the first $10,000 out of his own pocket. He's aware of that. It keeps his premium relatively low. But then you have the percentages, like you mentioned, and 1%, 5%. It could be a big difference depending on the size of the home. If we have a home that is a $1 million home, and 1% is at $10,000. And so, again, these percentages matter. And sometimes you see a percentage on a policy, the client they don't, realize what that dollar amount really is. And it really takes an agent to point that out so they can understand that, 1% is higher than the $1,000 deductible that you have on your policy, or maybe, a 5% is definitely much higher than the $2,000 deductible you have. So you have to be aware of these things.
So now, the higher the deductible, the lower the premium, monthly payment?
That's correct.
Right.
That's right.
So when they're going for these really low-cost policies, and they're just like, hey, get me right down there where it can kind of fit my budget, it's okay. I may not need to use this insurance, right? I mean, life doesn't really happen to me. That's kind of what the customer thinks. Well,
catastrophic situations don't happen all that often, but if they do, you better have the protection that you need. People, it's tough times out there for many people that, inflation has increased the cost of all kinds of goods, so they're trying to keep the cost down in insurance. And insurance has gone up the same way with many more claims that are happening because of natural disasters around the country. With inflation, the cost of building materials, the cost of labor is all increased. Therefore, people are trying to keep their costs down, and insurance is one thing that they do want to keep their costs down on. But it's really important for the client to understand by taking away some of the coverages and lowering their price, they're going to be losing on some of the benefits if something does happen.
Absolutely. So how important do you think at that aspect is it to understand the policy language? How many of your clients actually read all the line items, all the language, everything that it entertains, and then come back to you and ask you questions? Hey, what does this stuff mean? Doesn't look like if something happens to me, I'm in a very good position. So how many actually do that?
Well, as Keith, you probably know, there are probably a zero amount of people that actually read their policies.
I'm glad you're the one saying it.
Yeah, well, most people aren't attorneys. That's who wrote the policies to begin with. So they're relying on an agent that they can trust that can provide and deliver the policy with the language that's written inside of it, that they're going to be protected in the case of a loss happening.
So that's a good question. So being that you write multiple policies for other carriers, right? And you don't work directly with that carrier, how much leverage do you carry with you in case of denials on a claim and workability, to help them leverage a denial or essentially carrier fraud that does occur?
Yeah. Well, first of all, when a client does make a claim and they need my help, I'll listen to them and understand what their situation is. And if they're upset that they're being denied for some reason, of course I'm going to listen to them. Then try to get the side of the company's viewpoint from the adjuster that's handling the claim. Then coming back to the client again, whether it's I believe it's fair or not, I don't really have the final say on what happens here. It's it's the adjuster that does in the company. If the client is that dissatisfied, my pull ends right there. It's up to them to either go through arbitration, which would be a third party that would determine a ruling on that type of claim. They might have to get an attorney involved, unfortunately. When I say unfortunately, it's because it's costly when you go down that road. So that is what type of weight I can put to the subject, and that is I try to work with them and work with the adjuster to see if something can be done, and that's where it ends with me.
Okay. What do you feel the average property owner that comes in, never bought a home, and they're getting ready to get their first policy, what would be your suggestion on probably the top 5 items that are most important for insurable value within that property?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's the house itself and making sure that it's fully insured. We use a replacement cost calculator. What that means, we take in consideration the size of the house, the square footage, the year built. Does it have a basement? Is it finished? All the different features of a house. We put that into a formula, and then we find out what the replacement cost is. And that's a formula that is put together by insurance companies. There's 2 or 3 that are on the market that insurance companies use. And that determines how much the house should be replaced at. It's not the market value. It's not how much the house could be sold for. It's what the insurance company believes if the house got totally destroyed, how much it would cost to come in, remove all the debris of the house, and then replace it, in the case of a fire, that sort of thing. So the dwelling, first of all, is the most important thing. We want to make sure we have the proper protection on that. Then there's the other items that go along with the insurance policy, the package, because homeowner policies are package policies. Once you buy a homeowner policy, the first thing you determine is the dwelling coverage. Everything else is based off of that. The second item would be other structures that would be covered as well. That's usually 10% of the dwelling.
Okay.
So if a house is insured for $500,000, the other structures would be insured for $50,000. Of course, you can go higher than that, but the minimum minimum basic that they're going to give you is that $50,000 or 10%.
Okay.
You can't take that away. The package is the package. You cannot take that other coverage away. The next item would be personal property, and that's always a percentage of whatever the dwelling is too. So again, if you had a $500,000 coverage on the house, it's usually 70% of whatever the dwelling coverage is. So then you'd have $350,000 of personal property protection. Is that enough for the client? You want to make sure that's correct. The other items would be liability protection. I've seen too many homeowners that have too low of liability protection. That's in case someone is going to possibly get hurt at your house or outside your house. You could be a golfer and hit someone over the head with a golf ball and be protected with a liability protection from your home policy. So we want to make sure that a client has enough liability protection. So many people have lower limits, like $100,000 I've seen before. In this day and age, $500,000 is where I would start out, and it doesn't cost that much more to go even to $1 million, or even have an umbrella policy, which is another form of liability protection above the home policy. Okay. So I named off several. Another item would be with the personal property protection. You're going to have coverage on your basic personal property inside the house, your contents such as your clothing, your furniture, appliances, those sort of things. But there might be some items that might be more valuable, like jewelry, antiques, gun collections, card collections. If those run up in higher values, you want to make sure those are protected too. So we ask the questions with the client to find out where their situation is. We want to find out where they are so that we can protect them the best way possible.
Okay. So we talked about in the beginning, the property itself, the dwelling. If a loss occurs, what do you find necessary for replacement coverage within? Is that like an a la carte add-on, and then also code upgrades if replacement cost coverage does come into play?
Okay, so you're meaning if in replacement cost, once we do a replacement cost on a house, how much that should be covered for? There's a guaranteed replacement above and beyond that. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so from what I understand, that not all policies carry replacement coverage, correct?
That'd be correct.
Okay.
A lot of
let's say they're trying to lower that premium.
Yeah,
they can remove the replacement cost and get the actual cash value.
Well,
right?
Very few policies are written like that. The majority of the policies that we're going to write, I would say 99.9% are going to be full replacement cost.
Okay.
We do replacement cost calculator, like I mentioned earlier. We insure the home says it should be insured for $500,000, let's say. There is a guaranteed replacement cost endorsement that most policies will have as an endorsement of 25% above that amount, or 50%, or even full replacement, which means if the house got totally destroyed and it costs more than $500,000 to replace that house, would they go above and beyond that? They're replacing the house. They're get to a point where they're running out of money. They got to the $500,000. What do they do then? Well, if you have that endorsement on, they can go another 25% higher, 50% higher, or even full replacement, no matter what the cost might be. So that's an endorsement that really should be on most policies, and that's what we try to do. I think that was. Did I answer your question? Or
yeah. So then we'll go into code coverage, right? But so, what would be the purpose? Because we have seen it happen many times, many times, more in the last couple of years than we've seen lately. What would be the purpose of the agent or policy writer to leave a replacement cost coverage off the policy?
What would be the reason to?
Yeah, what would be the reason?
There really is no good reason in my estimation. They all should have that on there. The only way the reason to do that would be if an agent's trying to help the client, whether the client knows it or not, to keep the cost lower.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in agreement with me. Very important to have replacement cost coverage.
No doubt about it.
And understand exactly what that is.
Sure.
Okay. Code upgrade. That's another big thing that we see in the market. Whenever there is a situation, they try to save some money and drop, the code upgrade off, and they don't even actually realize that, maybe their home is out of code. Do you see that a lot?
Ordinance endorsements or a loss?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, we don't see that because we add that onto the policy. We make sure that there's that coverage that would be adequate in order for, if those circumstances arise, the protection is there for them.
Okay. So I am actually getting somewhere with this whole aspect of questions is these are the things that we generally see from online policies. believe it or not.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm trying to, put so much weight behind why it's so important to work with a local agent. You're nailing it. You're seeing the things that have to be done. They should be done. That comes with the experience. You've seen homeowners probably in the past maybe come to you, have switched from other carriers, other agents that they weren't covered, and they switched for that reason, right?
That's true. Well, most homeowners don't experience claims or large claims where it can affect them in a negative way, and therefore they're shopping for price only. And they don't. Many people are so busy they don't sit down to actually understand what they have, and then they don't have an agent that they can rely on. They're just shopping for price, and so they're trying to cut their costs, and this is what they're doing.
So basically, with Salvati, they would be getting the best of both worlds.
Absolutely, because we can shop for a client and get the best pricing. But even so, the price might not be the bottom of the barrel type of pricing, and we sell on benefit. So we're explaining to the client the need for the extra benefit so that they understand that the extra money that they're spending is worthwhile to them in case something does happen.
Okay. So basement coverage. I know that this is a big deal. So, we were a mitigation company at one time, and I understand the nightmares that come along with cap coverage. And can you possibly touch on that just, for somebody listening that has a basement that doesn't understand, when a sub pump goes or a pipe breaks and they just think, hey, we've got coverage. Basement's covered. We have insurance. It's good. Is it always covered?
Well, some situations are not, but most of us are in fear of water type of situations. And water can destroy and create a nasty situation. Mold can happen, all these sort of things. So there are definitely areas that can be covered and mitigated with protection on your home owner's policy. Sewer and sub pump backup coverage should be added to every policy that has a basement, and especially if you have a finished basement. You can have coverage starting as low as $5,000 of coverage and going on up to $50,000, or even higher in some situations if you have finished basements that really need protection. So there are those coverages that can be put on a homeowner policy, and so you have sewer sub pump backup coverage, which would help in the event of a sub pump failing and water coming up that way, or sewer coverage if this water's coming up, or sewer damage through the sewer pipes. That should be on every policy. Pipes breaking, those are generally covered under the regular homeowner policy. Okay. You have water possibly coming through cracks in the foundation. That might not be covered. That's something where you have maybe wear and tear. Wear and tear is not covered on a homeowner policy. And if you have water coming through cracks in the wall, that's something that is possibly not covered under your homeowner policy.
That's an interesting topic there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of these older basements, Grosse Pointe, St. Clair Shores, they're going to find a lot of those problems where we've had these floods over the last couple of years. And a lot of these were not insured. Yeah,
well, flood, I'm glad you mentioned flood. Flood is generally known as water coming in from outside. While the water is raising outside, it comes in up top through the upstairs and then down. And that is something that's not covered under a homeowner policy.
Right.
You have to have a separate flood policy that would take care of this. And most people do not have that because, first of all, it's not required by the mortgage company unless you're in a flood zone. And a flood zone is, an area where it might be a low-lying area by a lake or an ocean or a river, those sort of things. That's where a flood policy would definitely come in handy. But most people do not have flood policies.
Okay. So we know the big one that just happened was in New Baltimore. You familiar with that?
No,
one?
I'm not aware of that.
It was devastating. I mean, basements flooded absolutely everywhere, and I'm not quite sure if that is a flood zone or not.
It very well could be. Yes.
Okay.
Was this in the last month or so? Or?
This was a couple months ago. Yeah, it was just a couple months ago.
Okay.
End of August.
Okay.
So what does that pricing look like? Because now, anybody listens to this, they have a basement. Let's just say that they're not in a flood zone and there's no coverage there. What does coverage look like if they did have to put coverage on just to have that protection? The
extra flood policy you're talking about, Keith?
That's correct.
Yeah, you could have pricing as low as $300 to $400 if you're not in a flood zone, covering up to $250,000 of coverage.
Okay.
Pricing like this, if you're in a flood zone, depending on where you're at, it can get very costly. You're talking $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 type of premiums.
Okay, so when I'm going to go purchase a property, am I checking with the municipality? Who am I checking with to find out if I'm in a flood zone? Is that something that I would share with you, and you would do the research?
Yeah, an insurance agent definitely can check with FEMA.
Okay.
That's where the flood zones are determined. So you can check with an insurance agent. If you're getting a mortgage, you would ask the mortgage person. They would definitely require it. If you were in a flood zone, the mortgage company would definitely require you to have that coverage. You could ask your municipality as well. They would probably know if you are in a flood zone.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You have kids?
I do.
So a good question would be, one of your kids is buying a house. What are you directing them to put coverage on? Okay.
Well, I'm directing them to make sure they have a good homeowner policy that's covering everything at replacement cost.
Okay.
Making sure they have the correct dwelling coverage, the correct coverage on their contents, the right liability coverage in case they're sued. If they have any special items, I want to make sure that those are covered. We want to make sure that there's full replacement coverage on the roof. Okay, a lot of policies do not have full replacement coverage on roof, where it might just be a situation where if one part of the roof is damaged, the insurance company will pay for just that one area of the roof and not the full roof, because they are limited at that point in time to just cover that area of the roof. And then what happens is that part of the roof is not matching the rest of the roof, and you have an awkward-looking home because we have maybe discoloration in one area and the other area is looking new. So there are homeowner policies now that do have matching roof replacement.
Really?
Yeah.
When is that?
This has happened in the last couple of years. It's a new.
So I know Michigan is not a match state.
Yeah, you can have that coverage. For instance, one of our carriers match 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6%, I believe, of whatever the dwelling is covered for. So, in other words, if you had again a $500,000 home and you had the 6% roof matching, what is that? $30,000 of matching of coverage.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's a new one for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad we went into roofing.
Yeah.
So differences on deductibles, which I generally see, there's a different deductible for hail and wind damage. Why is that?
Well, hail and wind can be different because those are probably the most common occurrences. Some of the most common claims are, again, wind or hail type of damage to roofs. Roofs definitely, are probably one or two as far as the type of or number of claims that are done out there. So if you have a $1,000 deductible on your other parts of the policy, the deductible for fire or for theft, the hail and wind deductible can be a percentage, and then your percentage might be where you have the deductible at a higher amount than the $1,000 deductible on the rest of the house.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important topic because, again, nobody ever reads their policy, so they think I have coverage and I have $1,000 deductible. And then they come to find out they don't actually have $1,000 deductible. We had a past client about 6 months ago, got hit with a 2% deductible. And that deductible ended up being $8,000. So that's the sticker shock that, they go to use the coverage and they're like, yeah, I'm paying for this. I think I have this. And then they find out, well, it's actually this. And now we're in this huge blowout battle. And then now they're going back to their online insurance and saying, hey, what'd you guys do to me? You know? Again, more validity of why you want to use a local agent.
Absolutely.
So what separates Salvati Insurance from your competitors?
Sure. Well, we are a organization that, number one, we have great support. We have a staff that has over 150 years of insurance experience. We're able to then understand insurance policies well. Our divisions, commercial line, personal lines divisions, are headed up by extraordinary people that have a lot of experience in the business, so they can guide us the correct way to make sure that we're covering the clients correctly. This staff services people all day long. They're there for people to make any type of changes, answer any type of questions, whether it be a building question or a coverage question. So the staff there is second to none. They help all of our clients out tremendously. That's the big backbone of our agency. The other part is that we have a multitude of companies. We're able to shop around. We have some of the best carriers in the market, A-plus type of carriers. And so we're able to find the best policies, best coverages at the lowest prices for our clientele.
Okay. Do you guys, throughout the years, check in with your clients? I mean, do you have somebody dedicated to just service related? We're gonna reshop you every year. Type of scenarios?
Yeah, well, Keith, first of all, throughout the year, if a client has any type of question, they understand that we're there for them. Okay. We occasionally send out emails and such to update them on various things that are happening in the industry. And what you mentioned as far as annual reviews, we definitely do an annual review for our clients. We reach out to them. We ask them if their situations have changed, try to find out what's going on with their business. If pricing has gone up, we'll definitely reshop and remarket to find out if there's other carriers out there that we can reduce the price. And if there's other things that have changed in their business that they need extra coverage for, we're going to implement those coverages for them as well.
Okay. How about bundling? Because you guys do auto as well?
We do auto as well, for sure.
Okay. Does that tend to help the clients overall when they bundle up more insurable product?
Yeah, no doubt. From one policy to the next, if you have a home policy standalone, that means that, the only product they have would be that homeowner product. It's going to be more costly than if they added their auto policy with that same carrier. And sometimes it works out better that they're maybe with separate carriers. Pricing can be all over the board sometimes, but we definitely try to match the company with their home and auto together so that they do get the multi-policy discounts. That's what we're looking for.
Okay. So let's dive into one more thing before we go into commercials. So let's say they have something outside their homestead. They have a lake house. They have a rental property. They have other things that are these other properties able to receive the same coverage?
Yeah, if you have a vacation home, let's say, a seasonal home, we call them, and it's up north. Many people have this. We can put a homeowner HO3 type of policy on that home as well. These policies are usually the same as a regular home policy that a person would have in that they live in, that's their main residence. It's going to have the same type of coverage. It's going to cover their dwelling. It's going to cover contents. It's going to cover other structures, give them liability protection. We find out about what their vacation homes are like. We ask them questions, and then we recommend the different product or coverages to them, and then protect them the same way we would protect their regular home policy.
Okay, so when we go into, let's say, investment properties, and we have a landlord that has multiple homes that he rents out or leases, is he able to receive the same types of coverages?
Well, the landlord policy or fire dwelling policy is the policy that would cover the home itself. It's different than a regular HO3 policy that a person would have on their home. But it would be a policy if a person has several homes and they're all being occupied. We could do a all-risk type of policy on the dwelling itself. Contents would be at a limited amount because the owner of the home really does not have much contents in it. They might have a refrigerator, stove, and they're going to want to cover that. But those are limited items. The person that's renting out the home then would have a renter's policy to cover their contents. There would be liability protection. There would be loss of rent protection as well. If the home was destroyed and the renters could not be there, there'd be protection to pay for the loss of rent at that time. So same type of coverages almost, but it's a little different because it's a home that's being rented to someone else.
Okay. Is it required for a homeowner to have renter's insurance?
Is it required for a homeowner to have? For
the leasee or the renter?
Okay, for a renter that is renting in a home that a person, someone else owns?
That's correct.
Well, it depends on the land, the person that owns the property. Are they going to be the landlord? Are they going to require that as a requirement of having the ability to rent that house? Some landlords are going to want to have that there. If I was the landlord of a building, I would require my renters to have a renter's policy for sure. But some landlords aren't requiring that. It really depends.
Yeah. So the landlords that are not requiring it, that's kind of where I was going with it. Mm-hmm. Understanding the importance of getting renter's insurance, and what does that look like? What does that offer coverage on?
Yeah, renter's policy for the renter would be the first thing would be the contents that they bring into that home, and it could be as low as $20,000 of coverage. They might have their furniture, maybe maybe some electronic equipment. They feel that they only need a certain amount of coverage, and you can raise that amount to higher amounts to 30, 40, 50,000, whatever that renter believes that they need to have. That would be number one, and of course liability protection would be a part of the policy as well. So if they had a guest over and the guest tripped and hurt themselves and they got sued, the renter would be covered with the liability protection on their renter's policy. The owner of the home, the landlord, they would have their own liability protection to be protected as well.
Okay, so landlord's home burns down and the renter has no renter's insurance. So they're pretty much
out of luck.
Out of luck.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I was going with it. By not being the property owner, understanding that you don't own the property policy, so you're not going to be accessible to the same types of coverage that a standard homeowner would.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a very valuable thing for a lot of renters out there that do not have coverage. We've seen it many times over. And a fire or flood happens, they lose their items and they're gone. Yeah. It's extremely important. In the contracting field, we do roofing, and what we find is in a storm, let's say we have a hailstorm or a windstorm, and many contractors come in to work that same area, right? Because we know that based on a swath, there's certain proximity that was affected by that storm, and most of the time we see a ton of roofers that are going to just congregate right to that area. They clearly want to eat up as much work as they can, and the best way that they see doing that is to offer something to the property owner that we feel is put the property owner in a real bad position, and that is waiving deductibles. So by policy rights, the deductible is supposed to be paid, has to be paid in a loss by the property owner. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be correct, yes.
Okay. So if a contractor chooses to waive that deductible and the insurance carrier has written out an estimated price and they final bill that estimated price as what price agreeable was, and the contractor kicks back that deductible, what we find is that is putting the property owner into a fraudulent situation because they're really the policy holder. Is that correct?
Right. It sounds like an inducement to do business with that contractor, and it sounds like a fraudulent situation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we try and steer as much education to the property owners when these hailstorms or windstorms hit, and let them know that they are the policyholder and they're the ones that are essentially creating the fraud because they're entering into this deal. It's tempting. We know we want to save money, but when you got your policy, you signed up for a certain buy-in, and that is your portion. And again, I think that brings it back to understanding the policy. If you want that really, really low deductible, then you're going to pay for it in your monthly premiums, right?
This is for sure.
So it's kind of a give and take. Maybe we may never actually use it, but if we have to use it, we have to understand that as tempting as it may seem, that the deductible portion is always having to be paid by the property owner at all times.
That's correct. That comes out of the property owner's pocket first. Any other type of kickback or inducement by whoever, it might end up in a fraudulent situation. But again, maybe the property owner doesn't know any better. Maybe they're ignorant and they're looking out to put a little more money in their pocket. Again, we're all trying to save money these days, but they don't realize that they could be in a compromised situation.
Okay, well. I want to first thank you for taking the time, of your busy day and coming here and explaining to our listeners exactly why it's so important to have the right coverage on their insurance, why it's so important to link up with the right individual that understands the insurable product. If you're a business owner or, commercially or, landowner that just rents out or leases properties, why it's so important, to look out for somebody like you locally and do due diligence on and just make sure that, you're aligning with the right people that are looking for your best interest. And if they do need to get a hold of you and they're looking for somebody that's going to just knock it out of the park for them, take care of them every day of the week, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, thank you, Keith. First of all, they can call me. I love talking to people over the phone. I'm kind of old school on that. Sorry about that. Our phone number is the 248-720-1130. We have a web address, too, at Salvati, that's SALVATI-insurance.com. They can reach us there. I also have an email address. It's rfornasiero, so it's RFORNASIERO at TSIG1.com. So any one of those methods, I really prefer a phone call. I like talking to people. I get to know them better that way. So those are the methods to get hold of me, Keith.
Yeah, I think a lot of people lost touch with technology nowadays, right?
A little bit.
You've lost that personalism.
I mean, technology is fantastic, but
it is.
We miss the human touch. I
Right.
like talking. The inflection of voice and understanding a person, I think, is better when you talk to them face to face or at least over the phone.
Yeah, we're a major advocate for local agents, big time.
Thank you.
I mean, we've just seen the destruction out there with people that they get online. They first of all, the ones that go online that just do it themselves, they're the ones that have it the worst. I mean, it's just plug and play. They're answering the questions as they go through. That's worse than even having somebody on the other line that still doesn't have the education behind it.
Yeah.
Why it's so important, to have somebody local that really knows their stuff and is going to make sure that all that coverage is actually usable and they're not overpaying. So.
Yeah, Keith, I think you're totally right, and I appreciate you advocating for that because, again, these people are doing it like that either by themselves or maybe an online type of situation. They're not in the business. They haven't had all the experience that an agent has. There are things that you learn as you go on in the industry, in the insurance industry, that you find out that, we need to make sure we have that coverage. And again, a person that has a different type of job and they're doing it on their own, well, they don't understand the importance of it. And so a lot of times they're looking for the bottom line price. They're trying to cut their premiums for reasons. Of course, we all know we want to keep our budgets under control. But unfortunately, sometimes it's at the detriment of if something does happen and when you need it the most, it might not be there. So I appreciate you advocating for independent agents because they have the knowledge to help clients out. Thank you so much.
Well, I use Salvati myself, and I can say firsthand, it's a top-notch program. I'll tell you.
Awesome.
You guys do it well.
Thank you.
You definitely make the customers feel like they have no worries at all. I mean, I actually don't call because I know that I'm just covered in the first place.
Perfect.
There's really no reason for me to do it. I do get a renewal every year, and I like to see that I save some money, and Tommy goes out of his way to do that, so it's much appreciated. But again, I really want to thank you for taking the time of your day and kind of educating our listeners, and hopefully somebody got something very educational out of this, and they understand that there is so much importance. It's not just about price. Stop worrying about your monthly premium and pay attention to what Rick would offer you, and just listen and trust the way of the program.
Fantastic. Well,
right.
Keith, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.